Yeah, you know what the song of the past year? You know that George Thorogood song? I think it's George Thorogood or Bob Seger.
Is it one bourbon, one scotch,
close,
one
close.
scotch,
Oh, no, I drink alone.
Yes.
I drink alone.
With
Yeah, that is a George
else.
Thorogood, I believe. Yeah.
So on that note, you know, because before the pandemic, you know, sometimes we would go out to some bars sometimes, but you know, because it was so long, I started making old fashions. Because
and that's become like my favorite drink.
Yeah,
like in the last 2 years, I've become an old man. I drink old fashions.
Yeah.
Like I went from Jack and Cokes to old fashions.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, I can't order this at a bar, so let me try to figure out how to make it at least. And you know, I mean, it's a pretty simple as far as ingredients go, but it's all about just like, you know, getting it to your tastes and like.
Do you do like the orange peel and the whole thing?
Yeah, I put an orange peel in there. Some people say lemon, you know, but I do an orange peel usually. I've tried it all different ways just to see what I like. That, you know, depends on, you know, the bourbon. I mean, it's supposed to be bourbon traditionally. I've tried some different brands. You know, then it's what kind of sweetener you want to put in it. So I've even tried it with honey. Sometimes, you know, make simple syrup with like boiling, you know, sugar and water stuff. But that's the part I find the trickiest, the right sweetener, because I don't really like it sweet at all. I just a tiny, you know, just a touch.
Yeah.
And then there's the bitters, you know, there's that part. And then if you get a good cherry to put in there, it's, you know, there's so much you could do. It's kind of like, it's the act of making it that makes it so much fun.
Yeah, I like the act of drinking it.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, you know, like a little while ago, we went out to a distillery. We had a bunch of old fashions and stuff. That was a pretty good time. So, yeah, I just, you know, just kind of sipping and hanging out and stuff. It's always good. Yeah.
The old fashioned, the first time I ever heard of it, it was in the movie. It's a Mad World, my number one favorite movie. And there's a scene where there's the drunken pilot played by Jim Baucus, from Gilligan's Island. It's a funny scene. I mean, it's sort of like in any other context, this would be a really scary, tense scene where the pilot is like drunk and knocks himself out and everything, and then these two guys have to land the plane. Like, it's really like it's a scary scene, but it's done in this slapstick comedy kind of way. And I mean, you know, the pilot, you know, has a bar in his like in his like plane, and he's like, just push the button marked booze, and then they push it, and this like bar just like appears, and they're just like, oh shit, like what are we getting into here? And it's an old fashioned, and he's like, you know, they're like, well, don't you think, you know, what if something goes wrong? And he's like, or no, they say, what if something could happen? And he goes, what could happen to an old fashioned?
What if something happens?
What can happen to an old-fashioned, all right?
And I always remember all those lines from that. And I never thought, you know, to try an old fashioned. But it was probably in the last few years or so. I'd order at a bar sometimes just to see what it is. And, you know, sometimes you get it made and you're like, oh, I don't know, this one's a little too sweet. This one's a little too bitter. But once you get it just right, then it's like there's nothing like it. 'Cause it's called an old fashioned for a reason, because it wasn't an old fashioned originally. It was just the whiskey cocktail. It's like that's the drink, right? And then it became the old fashioned because it's this tradition, you know. So yeah, that's become like my favorite drink. Because I was never really like a cocktail guy either. You know, usually it's wine, beer, maybe, but you know, cocktails are kind of more. Well, see, there's a difference too between a cocktail and a mixed drink. And I think I would usually get a mixed drink, I would think a Jack and Coke would be more like a mixed drink.
That's a mixed drink.
Yeah, because a cocktail is more like you're just dressing the alcohol a little more to make it
like a martini.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's mostly booze, you know what I mean? But it's sort of masking some of the bite of it, you know.
Press the booze button.
You press the button marked booze.